wonderful to see and hear about blockchain being used for something good for a change. And to continue that discussion on healthcare and health tech and med tech, I'm actually going to be chairing the next panel, which will be on the future of med tech with AI and blockchain. Please welcome my panelists to the stage. Somewhere. I'll be doing this myself then. Hi. Sorry, could you please give a brief introduction of who you are and what you do, please? Dr. Miriam.
Should I start?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I'm Miriam Dali. I'm a member of the European Parliament from Malta. I'm a spokesperson for the Socialists and Democrats group in the European Parliament on environment, public health, and food safety. And in the European Parliament, I work as well on the issues of innovation, technology in the ITRE committee, which focuses on industry, technology, research, and energy.
That's a wide remit. Neil.
Hi, I'm Neil Patel, CEO, founder of Kabuni. We're a venture company that invests and incubates blockchain and emerging technology companies. And one of our portfolio companies is in additive manufacturing, so 3D printing for healthcare.
Anthony.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Anthony from Malta Enterprise. It's the Maltese government economic development agency, and our role at Malta Enterprise is to assist Maltese companies or Malta-based companies, but also to attract FDI and also in this sector of DLT and blockchain.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me here. This is a lovely and very active conference. My name is Victoria Saucier. I'm a blockchain entrepreneur with 20 years of experience, an investor also. I'm a managing director at Investment Group in New York. We are an early-stage investment firm focusing on the healthcare. I also run GainFi, which is a tech company looking at blockchain, AI, and we're using that for patient data, giving ownership of the patient back to the patient, ownership of the data back to the patient, essentially incentivizing patients to share their data with stakeholders and stay healthier and live better.
Cheers.
Adrian.
Hi, Adrian Attar-Trevisan. I'm Maltese. I'm based in Malta. I've been into building medical devices companies for the last 8 to 10 years. Last one, we took it public on the Australian Stock Exchange. Currently run a medical devices company producing temporary tattoo sensors that is currently growing and are heavily regulated, but are starting to grow inside hospitals, and we use a number of AI technologies to even help our technology diagnose a number of conditions.
So, Dr. Miriam, if I can start with you. Now, something happened at the European Parliament this week, which I think you're keen to talk on. And they apparently expressed an opinion on blockchain and healthcare this week. Now, can you elaborate on what was discussed and what was the outcome of that?
So in the industry committee, we've been working on a resolution that focuses on particular on distribution ledger technologies and in particular blockchain. And one of the aspects that the resolution focuses on is healthcare. So through this resolution, the European Parliament is expressing itself as regards to this technology. First and foremost, we are telling the European Commission to start acting to make sure that we have the proper framework in place. Ultimately, it's up to regulators to reach a balance between innovation and security. We want to make sure that the European Union has the expertise, the know-how, and that we have the resources who are capable of actually make this technology work. From the health perspective, we believe that there is massive potential when it comes to the sector of healthcare, because this is a technology that can be patient-centric. It can empower our patients, make sure that they have access to the data, they have control over the data, but most of all, make sure that that data is secure. And we believe that this is the way forward. This is the way to go, something which can make also Europe future-proof. And we believe that the EU, and particularly the European Commission, needs to act now. I come from a country where we're acting, we're moving in that direction, so I do understand also how important it is that the European Union also starts moving in that direction, because we need to make sure that we keep resources within the EU, make sure that investment is here, make sure that ultimately we are future-proof as a European Union as a whole.
Victoria, touching on the data aspect here. Now, it seems very aspirational to have patient data on blockchain and then have that being able to be shared across multiple jurisdictions in a way. Do you know some of the hurdles that, and the steps that we have to overcome to, I guess, giving confidence to the patients that this data is secure, how they manage that data, are they happy that that data is being shared?
Well, you have to look from the back, what kind of blockchain it is, because there's different frameworks of blockchains. There is an open source, there is a private blockchain, there is permission-based proof of work, and etc. So there's different frameworks. And when we particularly look at how we can protect sensitive information of a patient and also give accessibility to data immediately, anytime, anywhere for the patients, and ability for the patient to monetize on that data. In US alone, it's a $28 billion industry, the OTC for patient clinical data. And unfortunately, what's interesting, patient doesn't get to benefit a penny out of it. So blockchain, what it does, it actually brings ability for the patients to participate in that. Access helps to save a lot of lives for people, and an ability to monetize and incentivize patients. So you can take it on step notch when you can pay financial rewards to the patient and ask them, listen, can you live a little bit healthier? Can you do a little bit steps instead of taking a car? Can you maybe lose a little bit of weight, and etc. So the hurdles on that is obviously, how do you separate that? So it all comes with the technology architecture of blockchain. And what we're doing is when the data comes in, we separate the sensitive information, and it goes on a traditional data cloud, protected with encryption, and then clinical information, which is non-confidential, goes on the blockchain. And that's what the patient can monetize on.
And do you see smart contracts playing a part of that as well?
Yeah, well, smart contracts, again, that's, well, if you go with Ethereum, right, you can mine this data. So right now, we haven't figured out how you can mine the data. Maybe in the future, we'll figure it out. We use, particularly if you go to frameworks, we use Cloud Foundry Kubernetes technologies, and through Pivotal, let's say. So yes, you can do the smart contracts, but it's a limited situation. You cannot put any personal information in that. You cannot, and you don't want to.
Now I want to throw this one out to all of you here, because I read an article recently, and it was commissioned in the UK, so not in the or maybe not in the EU soon anyway, but jurisdiction, but. They surveyed 68 NHS healthcare trusts and found that 94% of them still relied on handwritten notes. Now, how do we convert? Well, not only convert handwritten notes, but how do we change that mindset of something that seems that doctors and surgeons and healthcare in general just seems to still be very manually driven, and not a lot of processes are digitized to be able to put that on blockchain? Well,
I just want to tag on that.
Yeah, sure.
Just you come with simplicity. Like for instance, on our platform, we don't say, hey, we're using blockchain, you can earn tokens. We say, we're using secure, efficient, protective technology, and then you can earn points, and then you can redeem those points. So you go to consumer from what they used to and gradually make them grow into maybe understanding what it is. If you make it complex and scary for a lot of people, different demographics, they're not going to understand, they're going to avoid your platform. So simplicity is the key, something they're used to. Same with the doctor and providers, same situation.
I mean, I'll share my view on that. I've got 4 kids. My 9-year-old daughter wants to be a doctor. She's not going to write notes if she becomes a doctor. She's used to devices today. So I think there's an easier answer to that in my view, that the next generation and beyond aren't going to be people that write things. They are going to be people that use devices to record data.
So do you see a timeline basically for what we are discussing today to actually come into effect?
Yeah, I think we've seen that, right? We've gone from writing letters, putting them in the post, to now sending emails. So I think if you think of generations of the future, what are they going to do?
I tend to differ a bit because
I don't
there is
agree
a
as well,
timeline.
yeah.
It's true, there is a timeline, but I think the opportunity lies for those who are capable to actually jump and take in the potential that exists, the opportunity that exists, instead of waiting for things to happen within that timeline.
But even in the UK itself, I mean, there was recently a study, NHS is rolling out, the services. A number of visits, GP visits, are not even anymore done face-to-face. There's an app, etc. And funnily enough, I was also reading an article recently that the uptake of these services were mainly by people over 65.
Yeah.
So also comfort, once you get the people getting into a system, it's more the start of, it's more when you get a person to start adopting a technology that is the main hurdle. But I don't think you have to wait generations. In fact, the uptake of, for example, there are companies like Babylon Healthcare, now Healthcare in the UK. There are a number of these companies rising up that are basically taking off a big chunk of what previously used to be a stagnant, long waiting list in a clinic or at a hospital. And we're not waiting for the 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds of today to adopt those. The 65-year-olds plus are actually taking on board these technologies.
I believe that also we need to look at a generic approach to blockchain at large. And it was a comment that was passed on to me by someone who passed by the stand and was saying, look, we're immersed in this bubble and we speak about ICOs and token sales and DLT and all these acronyms. However, to leverage the full potential of blockchain, of this technology, we need to really put it out there on the simplest levels. So while here we're discussing on the policy making, on the intricacies and the small detail, there is also the social element of blockchain, the enabling of a trust mechanism. So it's the trust mechanism that needs to be explained to the larger, to the crowd, to people in our communities, in order to showcase that this is not just any other technology. It can be considered as such, but it has such a larger potential because of the social element of it, the trust mechanism that is pushed through DLT, and the distribution element of it, and removing what one might refer to as the big brother in the middle through the power of all of us together. And when we manage to leverage the full potential of blockchain through communicating the social element of it, I believe that the jump into utilization by the masses will help us reach our ultimate goal, to use blockchain for good and for advancement. And it's the energy that is here needs also to be transcended outside of our little growing bubble, but yes, outside of it.
So you're responsible for investment.
Yes.
And obviously attracting that investment and speaking with companies who are interested in growing in Malta and obviously in blockchain and startups. So how is that going? Who are you speaking to that's really exciting you in this space right now?
First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of this event because they managed to create a real coming together of people from different parts of the world, but also faces that we have interacted with as Malta Enterprise and other government authorities over the last 5-6 months. It's been a fabulous ride. We've met with so many people, different enterprises, different outfits, different propositions that can transform different strands of our everyday life, be it retail, be it health. And we learned with these interactions what we should be proposing as support measures. So as you very well know, there are support measures. There is the concept of a jurisdiction. This jurisdiction, Malta, that is going out in the world and saying, look, come here because we believe in this technology. We want to be early adopters, not first adopters and just be quick and not make it happen the right way, but make it happen through consultation, then take a decision, put on the laws, roll out the policy out of it, and make it happen. And being able to listen and adapt in the future. But going on to the support measures that we're making available, there are a number of there are different types of companies. So we met with a lot of startups at a pre-ICO or token sales stage, where what they need is assistance. Okay, the jurisdiction is good, is nice, but they need access to finance. They need money to start helping them make their steps. And there is a particular incentive, which we call startup finance, and it works as a loan repayable over 10 years with an initial 3% interest rate, where we match paid up share capital up to a maximum of 200,000 euros. Obviously, there's details and guidelines that we can discuss, and I invite you to pass on to our stand as well. So that's for startups. For more mature companies that are cash rich already, but would like to consider Malta and compare it to other jurisdictions, there are tax credits that we can also discuss about, which are complementary to the already favorable jurisdiction in Malta as our tax regime. Our corporate tax regime is already favorable. And on a final note, when you're a company and you decide to come operate here in Malta, you might need highly qualified individuals, some of which you find here, and we're working with university and other institutions to have highly qualified individuals here. But if you would like to import talent, there is a highly qualified individual scheme that assists with the personal tax of those individuals. So there is a thought-through support measures that help companies in their different stages. And we also believe, to wrap it up, we also believe in being on a trip with these companies. Not just being there in the beginning, say a lot of niceties and paint Malta as a paradise, and then just let them go on their own steam, but be there as partners. Not shareholders with equity, but shareholders in their vision.
Victoria, now you're an investor as well. What do you look for in a company that's involved with health tech, for example?
So it's a little bit a paradox. We're a traditional investor. We're looking at the early stage as equity participant, not so much in a token. But 2 years ago, we started to look at technology, not so much at the crypto, what's happening. If you don't participate in this trend, you, as an investor, eventually you're going to lose out on very good, prominent companies who are developing good technology. So we started to look at that and started to look at blockchain, AI, artificial intelligence, what's the advancement of that, virtual reality, robotics is a big deal. But when we're looking at the company, we're looking traditionally at the team, at the possibility of execution, that idea they have, because without that, it's just an idea, right? And we're looking at the network of their partnerships. Yeah, a lot of aspects of that nature.
Moving off blockchain slightly, Adrian, you get to play with AI, and
Yeah.
and your company does some cool stuff. You know, how do you see AI starting to creep into the whole healthcare system
Well,
from the start to the finish?
first of all, the word AI, I think at the moment is a little bit of a cliche. Everyone is throwing in AI. I mean, we soon start
Yeah.
seeing recipes for cakes made with AI. So there are already actually machines doing AI, doing cakes with AI. So basically, no, we've been actually integrating. There are two strands of thinking, I think, into AI, into medicine. And I was addressing another conference in Switzerland a few weeks ago, and I dealt mainly with that. Basically, AI, there are the streak that actually look at AI, how we're going to replace the medical professionals. Like we've seen actually big debates with Babylon Healthcare as having its AI algorithms doing an exam and comparing them with a normal physician, and they said it was like 10 points better than the physician doing that exam. But we have a little bit of a different streak of AI. We believe that AI algorithms actually should help physicians, should help medical professionals. We actually created a small software which is now getting rolled out in a number of hospitals, that it helps physicians diagnose a number of conditions by taking a look at a number of vital signs of a patient over a period of time, and then but give suggestions to physicians. So if you see like a lot of high heart rate, blood pressure going up, it asks the doctor, listen, don't you think this might be hypertension or a risk of a particular condition? We believe that the AI integration, and we need to be very, very careful over the next years of how we integrate these algorithms inside the physical health structure. Because in reality, we cannot afford to have doctors being threatened by these actually algorithms, AI, different methodologies, because otherwise it wouldn't succeed. We really need to have everyone from the surgeon in the operating theater to the nurse helping the patient willing to adopt these technologies. And I think we started really with the wrong foot by getting a number of medical professionals afraid by these algorithms that are there basically to help them. And that's a long struggle that we've been working very much on. But I think once you get everyone on the same page and telling them, listen, we're adopting these technologies, deep learning algorithms, etc., to help you, not to replace you. I think that's what we've been doing over the last year or so.
And
Very
AI cannot exist in silos too. So AI has to go together with the data, with a large chunks of data. And that's where the blockchain and data, because blockchain is great for data. And as a matter of fact, you know, in the United States, a lot of large stakeholders started to look at the blockchain and have significant interest in it, especially in data exchange, the innovation in it, creating much faster, immutable transmission of information while having the sensitive information of the patient to be protected, you know. So it's not separate like AI, blockchain, it has to work all together. And with blockchain, the use case, for instance, is a big, it's not just data. I mean, in the United States, like claims, look, let's say insurance claims, because we're not public healthcare, we have insurance companies where we go through that to process for the provider, which is doctor claims, takes a month to get reimbursed. So blockchain can process it real fast. So you can look at medical drug logistics monitoring. So you can, there's a lot of application for that. There is identity, credential verification instantaneously. So blockchain is very useful. It's technology of the future, no doubt. It just very beginning stage of it. We're going to see the development, and we don't know how well we develop.
And a question out to all of you, and maybe you can answer from a parliamentary perspective, is obviously the ethics side of AI and how, well, one is there are plenty of bodies who study the ethics and want to advise on ethics, but obviously they have specific interests. But in healthcare, it's a whole can of worms in a sense, because we have to gain patient trust that the algorithms are doing the right thing, and the doctors have to have trust in the AI. So is there a whole ethical question
Debate.
around AI as well?
And I have to echo maybe something that you mentioned, that Mr. Attar Trevison mentioned. Because I see that happening also amongst policymakers. I believe that we need to move forward to AI. We need to embrace technology. I'm one of those people who believes that technology is there to empower people, it's there to empower patients. Now we have a choice. Either we try to oppose technology, I'm not one of those, or we try to make sure that we take the maximum potential out of any kind of technology, including AI. I'm mentioning particularly AI because amongst policymakers, there is also this concern. What's going to happen? Can artificial intelligence be used against us? How will it work when you have AI replicating values? How will that happen? What kind of values are we going to input? And that is maybe the most underlying principle that we need to focus on. The values that we want to push forward, the values that we believe in, the values that ultimately want to be replicated. And instead of embracing this technology, there are those people who would rather, let's leave it to a side, let's make sure that we continue in what we have at the time being. But I believe that if we do that, we will not benefit. No one will benefit. In the long run, we'll be losing out and will not have something that really and truly can help our patients. And this is the ethics debate as well. Because ultimately, it is up to us as policymakers to make sure that there is the proper regulatory framework to close any loopholes, to make sure that we have something that actually delivers. So I really enjoy hearing what you're saying, seeing what you're doing, because I believe that that is not only the future, it's the present, but we need to make sure that we have the proper regulatory framework, we have the proper incentives, we promote what you are doing, but we promote it in an ethical way, making sure that ultimately our patients, our consumers, our citizens will be the ones who really benefit, who can make the utmost out of the data, being secure, but also being the ones who are empowered and can actually benefit most from all these developments.
Okay. So healthcare is not all just about blockchain and AI. I mean, Neil, you and I were having a chat about some pretty cool stuff in the back there. We've seen 3D printed lungs and livers happening here. So I mean, can you maybe elaborate on what you're playing with and what you've seen?
Yeah, I think when we think of the era that we're living in, that we're never going to probably see a moment in history or in the future that we've got a convergence of not just blockchain, we're talking numerous emerging technologies. So in 3D printing, a company that we invested in currently prints orthotics and prosthetics today. So a doctor will scan a patient, AI will do a regenerative design of the file, and then a 3D printer will effectively print a human body part to install. But I think if we go, I say 10 years, so we'll be futuristic here and imagine a world. The reality is there's bio 3D printing, which takes your own cell, effectively then creates a lung or liver replacement, kidney, and 3D prints that outside of your body, grows it in a lab. So in the future, we're not talking about implants, we're talking about replacements, no different going to get a tire replaced for your car. So the average age of living, which is I think in the mid-80s in Europe today, is going to be the new 100 plus. But cornea of the eye, we're talking about 3D printed in the future. Today I've got a 3D printing tooth replacement. So 3D printing is probably going to be an integral part of healthcare. And on a final note, we saw a company about 6 months ago where I see Apple Watches on here, smart devices. So imagine your healthcare on blockchain with AI. Imagine a 3D printer at home with cartridges that are vitamins, and your real-time data will basically say, I'm dehydrated, I walked X number of steps, my vitamin deficiencies are Y. Every day you will get a custom 3D printed vitamin pill to optimize your health. So 3D printing on top of AI, on top of blockchain, is effectively going to help us live longer.
And final question, I guess, is and this one's for all of you here, is with the convergence of all these technologies, how do we make this accessible to everyone? Because obviously there is a divide, especially in the US, I say, where it's a very different system than in the UK, which is national health, but you have medical insurance, which you have to cover for. How do we make sure that everyone gets the benefit of AI or blockchain health records, of 3D printed body parts that eradicate some of the problems that we see today? How do we make it so it's not just the privileged that have access to this? What do we need to do from a policy perspective? What do we need to do from encouraging startups that look to this? And what do you guys need to do when you're actually building startups? So,
I'll be short. From the policy perspective, I think we need to be innovative. We need to have the courage. We need to make sure that we have the right incentives in place and the right measures to make sure that all citizens can benefit. I come from a country where public health is free of charge. It is a national system where everyone can enjoy the benefits of that system. We need to make sure it remains sustainable, like in all the other countries where such public systems are like that, and make sure that those benefits trickle down to all our citizens everywhere.
I believe it's crucial to have also governments providing these services themselves. For example, on the blockchain side, we also see that the Maltese authorities are venturing in offering services on the blockchain. So that needs to be replicated also on other technologies, with always keeping in mind the ethical perspective of it. I know, for example, that the MDIA, which is being launched officially in these days, is giving the opportunity for companies to come and have a certification from Malta on DLT technology. However, as it has been said yesterday, this will be, in the future, be expanded to AI and IoT. Thus, in order to, when having this kind of platform that can provide an opportunity for certification, the quality and the standards might be assisted in improving. But obviously, as Miriam has stated, we need to see that also governments take the opportunity of new technologies and include them, hopefully in the future, in their public health offering as well.
Okay, I'd love to continue the discussion, and I'm sure everyone else here would love to attack you at the sides and ask you questions as well, which would be great. If you have questions about the future of healthcare, please contact our panelists at the sides. But please thank my panelists for a really engaging discussion. Thank you very much.